With LIV coming in and completely changing the golf scene, a lot of people were wondering what sport was going to be next. Then just a couple months later, the same Saudi Arabian investment fund offered star soccer player Kylian Mbappe a $776 million contract. Yeah, almost $1 billion contract, but that's not even the craziest part. That's just for one season. That's more than LeBron has made throughout his entire NBA career. They're offering players insane amounts of money, and who says they stop at just golf and soccer? There were multiple NBA players making jokes about the $700 million contract, saying that they would take it if they could. So could Saudi Arabia have the effect they had on LIV in the NBA? Yes and no. They definitely could offer a ton of star players in the NBA insane contracts to come play. Some players would turn it down to stay in the United States, and others would leave in a heartbeat. Although not many players want to play for the Raptors because it's in Canada, so playing in Saudi Arabia is a whole different story. But if you're offering that player $100 million a year, then they just might go anyways. They're offering money you could retire on to play a sport for a single year. It's essentially what LIV was doing to the PGA Tour, just offering them money they almost can't refuse. When all the LIV and PGA stuff was first going on, Adam Silver had a press conference basically saying the Saudi Arabian fund has made no contact with the NBA. But they wouldn't buy a team, they would straight up try to rival the league. Saudi Arabia's basketball team and league is subpar at best. However, if they invest some of their infinite money into the league for a complete overhaul, then things could change quickly. With their current league, they would have absolutely no idea how to market an NBA star. For years, they've had local players, and then here comes some NBA All-Star to average 50 points a game. But if they invested in their media coverage and tried to get better all-around players, then something like that, in my opinion, could happen. I could see a lot of players turning it down, but at the same time, I could see several players taking it with no hesitation. Literally just a few weeks ago on Jeff Teague's podcast, he talked about how many more players in the NBA would rather have a max contract than a championship ring. Which to the fans for some reason is crazy, but is a very real scene. These dudes are trying to make as much money as possible in the time that they're playing, and a LIV contract would make that goal a whole lot easier. You already have overseas players that are traveling several countries away to try and get paid to play basketball. So who's to say some of them won't go to Saudi Arabia to play for 10 times the money? Then as you gain talent, you're also kicking players out that are originally from Saudi Arabia trying to make a career. But they have the money and could have the coverage, so it would be up to the execution of it all. They could try and target the LaMelo Balls of the world, but I don't know how many there really are. You could try to recruit players that would eventually make their way to the NBA, paying them way more than they would make in their first years in the NBA to come play for Saudi Arabia. And there are definitely high school prospects that would up and leave for $50 to $100 million. I feel like if they truly wanted something to be successful, then it would have to be done within the United States. Most of the players are coming from the US, so trying to convince a majority of the top talent to up and leave to Saudi Arabia would be kinda tough. Everything I've said in theory could happen, but it would take a lot of money on their part. A lot more money than we've even talked about so far. The highest paid player in the NBA is now Jaylen Brown, who just signed a 5-year, $304 million contract. That would be an annual salary of $61 million, which is an unbelievable amount of money, but when you compare it to some of these contracts these golfers are getting, then it's a massive difference. They paid $650 million to sign 5 golfers. So they really could have $1 billion starting lineup if they can convince the players to play. Something along the lines of this has happened with the NFL and the USFL back in the early 80s. The USFL was able to steal some of the NFL's top talent coming out of the draft because they were offering them money they couldn't refuse. And that money they couldn't refuse could be twice as big coming from this infinite supply of money this investment fund has. The league was extremely hyped because of the players they were signing and the controversy they had with the NFL. The players signed for the money, but it was also being played within the United States. If it was the SAFL, then I don't know how many of those players would still go. They ended up shutting the league down just 3 years later because they couldn't keep up with the money. They were offering players so much more than the NFL, but wasn't making nearly enough to be able to support it for the long term. That's the part we really haven't seen yet with the Saudi Arabian investment fund. This is all still extremely new, so none of it has stood the test of time whatsoever. Will they be able to continue to pay the players the amounts they were first offering? We'll just have to see. be. Anybody with infinite money could create the best basketball league in the world, but at some point there is a limit. Signing the players is one thing, but being able to sustain it is a whole nother beast, especially with the amount of money they would have to make back to support it. They could just come in and change the NBA if they really wanted to, but I don't think we're there just yet. They literally just started their golf takeover and have already made a move to soccer, which is a lot more of a global sport. So the return on investment with soccer would be a lot more than the NBA. Then again, it takes one offer to get the conversation really started. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. I respond to every single one, so definitely let me know your opinion. Also, thank you guys for 1,000 subscribers, it really does mean a lot. So if you're new, please subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.